Thanks for joining us for another episode of Keeping It Entrepreneurial. I am your host, Josh Shepler. And guys, we have a fantastic show for you today. Joining us today is Kellyanne Harris. She's a dynamic force in the real estate industry, an entrepreneur, dedicated sports mom, investor, and trailblazer. With a passion for creating transformative opportunities, she began her real estate journey in her hometown of Owensboro, Kentucky. With years of industry experience, Kelly has successfully scaled and expanded businesses across the Ohio and Kentucky region. She is the founder of the Bluegrass Referral Network, known as VZN Real Estate Platform, and serves as the operating principal for Keller Williams Elite and Keller Williams Heartland, an expansive network of brokerages spread across Western Kentucky, Columbus, and Southern Ohio. Her portfolio also includes a thriving title company, a property management firm, and an impressive 8-figure rental portfolio that continues to grow. Wow. We have got it all for you today. We discuss leadership, how Kelly started as a single agent, and now she leads the #1 real estate team in Owensboro with over 30 team members. We discuss strategies she helped grow her team, the struggles, the setbacks, and how she keeps it all together and keeps it entrepreneurial. Okay, guys, let's dig in.
Welcome to Keeping It Entrepreneurial, the podcast where we unravel the tales of launching, scaling, and savoring success with your host, the King of B&B, Heath Green, and the Property Prince, Josh Shepler. Come along as we share our experience launching and scaling a 7-figure property management business that we built and sold, along with candid conversations with remarkable entrepreneurs who've mastered the art of business and have an unbridled spirit for entrepreneurship. Get ready to ignite your entrepreneurial soul and fuel your passion. This is where we celebrate the hustle, innovation, sacrifice, and struggle of building a life worth living. This is Keeping It Entrepreneurial.
Hey, well, welcome back to Keeping It Entrepreneurial. I am Josh Shepler.
And I'm Heath Green.
And we are super excited for our guest today, Kellyanne Harris. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you all for having me.
We are super excited to jump in today. And I think I was just telling you, you're our first real estate guest. And we can jump into that because our audience loves all the real estate information. And obviously there's been some big changes recently that we can discuss today. We won't bore everybody with all the legal mumbo jumbo, but would like to educate everybody a little about it. So let's just jump right in. I know, obviously, you've built a lot of businesses. If you're in the real estate space, people, I'm sure, are very familiar with you. But tell us a little about, if people don't know Kellyanne, what all have you accomplished and working on? I know you have a real estate team. You've started a KW market center. You have all these different networks. So give us a little background.
Yeah, so I've been in the real estate game. I'm going on my 15th year. And through that journey, it has been a journey of lots of entrepreneurship. And I'm very competitive at heart. And I also love to serve. Like the good Lord gave me that will in life. And so leadership, there's always this thing like, are you born a leader or do you become a leader? And I've heard it both ways. I do think that you're born, to do that. And so leadership, I didn't realize that. I didn't even realize I was a good teacher. Actually, my father was like, you need to be a school teacher. But now full circle, I feel like I'm a teacher in the real estate space. So we've done real estate brokerages. We've had 13 locations in the market center world with Keller Williams. Decided to come back home and get my kid through high school. So I've changed directions a lot throughout my career. Been solo agent doing 142 real estate transactions on my own, to then building a team. Our platform will do close to 600 homes this year. We'll sell around 600 homes. We have 30 some odd agents on our team that encompasses 4 different locations, which is Owensboro, Kentucky, Bowling Green, Elizabethtown, Kentucky, everything in between the lakes, and then Evansville, Indiana, and Southern Indiana. So we have, that's called Vision Platform. And then our home base, where I live is the Harris Group, which is one of the teams which within the platform. Because as we started to expand, I thought nobody knows who Kellyanne is in Bowling Green, and everyone knows who Justin Racy is, who's my partner. But how can we build something that all of these teams can kind of plug into, and use the same systems and structures that allowed us to scale really big in Owensboro, to go into these other cities, and keep the agent's name. So we have that. Now I have one market center that encompasses Elizabethtown. We're part of the Louisville MLS, Owensboro, Evansville. We have our Indiana broker's license, and pretty much the western part of the state we cover. So yeah, and then we do property management. I flip houses. I always have 3 to 4 flips going at all times. I manage properties. I manage Airbnbs. We own a mortgage company. We own a title company. Like all things real estate, I probably have my hand in it some way or shape or form.
And awesome. Probably the biggest, you do have a kid, and so mom life.
Yep. My kid. That's really what I say. If I didn't have a child, like it's what keeps me grounded to make sure that I fully live life how I need to live. And I don't get consumed so much in the business, right? Like I think sometimes we go along life and our job defines who we are, right? And so, yeah, I've done all these things. We have that's all my career accomplishments. But that's not really Kellyanne, right? Like Kellyanne is this type of a human and this giver and a believer and a mom, and I'm the house that all the kids come to. So I think I'm kind of the cool mom. And so, but the mom that like, okay, let's go do this. Like I'm always the adventure mom, right? So like, yes, I think that had I not had a child, I probably would have been like so different. I don't know. It's really grounded. So
what's one thing, I mean, with all of your accomplishments and all the businesses and entrepreneur journeys that you've gone through in life, and having now a high schooler, how do you do a work-life balance? Is there like a system or a routine or something that you live by to be able to be so successful in this entrepreneurial world, but also be a mom who's providing unique and one-of-a-kind experiences and also pouring into their child's life?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if I'm being transparent, it's been a roller coaster. There's been times where I'm not a present mother. There's times in my career where I chose my career off of being there. Like, and those are, and that's what I tell people that are like up and coming parents, or maybe there's something else, maybe not just being a parent, but just having a big hobby in their life, right? It's, I think you find time allotted to what's important, right? And so like, it's a very hard road to coach agents on, of like picking their family over picking their career. But I always say, like, do not make the kids the excuse, make them the reason. And there are times you're going to have to miss out on things. Like if you had a 8 to 5 job and your kid had a play and you couldn't make it to that play because your vacation time's up, you just can't make it to that play. The problem with the entrepreneurial world is, you can kind of make it to that play. So like, which one do you pick, right? But if you had somebody over your head saying you can't go, you can't go. So, but then we get the choice. So what I have done is I do have my son every other week. So I am a little different than some parents. So I have a lot of help on that. But I am the one that lives in this county. So like, I'm the easier access to like all the things. So even though it might not be my week, I still may be dropping something off or picking or that kind of stuff. It's in red on my calendar. Red is non-negotiable. I pick up Mason. I take him to his workouts. I take him to practice. Everything for Mason is non-negotiable. And if it's one of those things that can be negotiated, that I don't have to be there for Mason, then it's not in red, right? It's just an option if I don't have something that comes ahead of that. So that's the first thing I put on my calendar, and then everything else gets filled in around that. So that's what makes it work for me.
Has that, like in that space, and everybody, I feel like the conversation 24/7 is about balance. How do you have balance? How do you do this? And personally, I think that's something that we all chase. I don't think it's something that anybody really ever gets, is balance, because balance means so many different things to so many different people. What's balance to you may not be for us. And so I think chasing that, number one, sets people up for failure. But it's like you said, you have to schedule time for things that mean the most to you. But I also think that in this real estate space, young agents who have no income, they feel guilty, and that's such pressure to say, you know what, I've got to make money, but how do I also say, you know what, I've got to be with my kid, and I'm going to schedule that because if somebody wants to see a house. So has that always been the case for you, or did you just recognize, look, there's got to be some sacrifices, because at the end of the day, without the sacrifice, you can't create the life that you want for your son.
Mm-hmm.
And so has that always been the case?
Yeah, in the beginning, there was no red with Mason. Like, it was, I had a great babysitter who allowed me to work till 8 o'clock at night showing property. I knew I had such a huge end goal that I wasn't going to be working like this forever. And he was a baby. And so he did not remember if I was there or not. I hate to say that, but I was the one that was missing out, right? I was missing out on things. But I knew the long game was I was going to get to take him on this vacation. I was going to get to have this quality time. And I have always put my son first. Like, I will say that. But putting him first meant sacrificing time from him so that I could put him first in this vacation or on this weekend or at this event or whatever that looked like. That's how I put him first, I just might not have been able to put him first on that day because I needed to do this so we could go do this. So I'm such a planner. All my vacations are built out for the year. I try to do something for me or me and my son every single month. We go and do something. So I know I'm going to make it up another time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I think it's probably worse for entrepreneurs because when you are the one deciding, do I get to spend time with my kid or do I with my dogs, for us, whatever it is, or family, and then you choose work, it's the same thing. It's for people who work a 9 to 5 or they work third shift. It's just that they don't get that choice. They're saying, well, my boss says I can't spend time with my kids. So they're doing the same. It's just that as an entrepreneur, you're personally making those decisions. So I think it's more pressure for entrepreneurs to say, I've got to do everything perfect. And for me, and I think I can speak for both of us, we gave up perfection a long time ago because we realized that was something, if you're chasing that, you're never going to succeed. It's something that someone else has made up for you that looks like success. And so everybody's version is different. So for you, like, my question is like, has success for you evolved like over your career? Or has it kind of always been consistent, like what that North Star looked like?
No, success in the beginning was broke Kelly, on all this debt, trying to put food on the table. So like I had no choice but to work and to leave him at the sitter or put him in the car with an iPad. Like I didn't have a choice. And, the fortunate thing about it, especially if you're married, you have that other person to rely on. And so then, so success was in the beginning was that, right? I didn't have anyone to rely on. I had to go make money, and that, not that I had a boss, but I had to put food on the table. And then success changed. And then I was all about myself and getting all the acclimates and all the affirmations of being about Kelly. And I wanted to prove to the world that Kelly could be successful because everybody told me not to do it. And then that ended up being very empty, right? And very like, I walk into agents' offices and it's like, number one agent, and all these awards. And I'm like, that is just so empty to chase at the end of the day. It's very empty to chase. But I know a lot of people are still there. I'm fortunate enough to be past that. Like that stuff just, but I know it's important to some people. I'm not going to say that it's not. I eventually got to the place where success was watching the people around me like flourish. That's when I knew I was succeeding. And that's what I'm chasing today is impacting lives. And I know I'm a good leader if the people are not financially struggling underneath of me, at least the ones that are showing up, right? There's going to be ones that don't.
Yeah.
And if they've gone and created wealth and bought homes and they're changing the financial trajectory of their family or personally growing themselves.
And
So
John
Go ahead.
Maxwell says that's significance through others, not success. So he says that's obviously significance. So it means that you've reached that part of your career where it's significance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is what's fun for me now because it's like I could probably retire right now and live off a little bit like what I'm doing and sell half of my portfolio, get it paid off, get my house. Like I mean, if I wanted to and I wanted to lower some things I want out of my life, I'd probably done. I mean, to be honest, but it's like, I'm not done. Like, I'm not done changing things and making an impact. Like, I'm going to keep doing this because that would be selfish for me to be done right now.
So was there a time in your life that had kind of caused that shift, whether it be something in your work life or something you read that you were like, hey, I'm not just chasing for all these accolades of being number one and putting myself first, but I'm now seeing that like to truly change my life and build me up personally is by doing it through others. Was there something you read or a life experience or something that happened?
I remember getting into leadership. It was like 8 years ago when Keller Williams came to me, Myra, and said, hey, do you want to open this office? I was like, I'm the number one agent in town, right? Like, I'm like, no, but people don't like me. Like, my agent, people don't like me. The only people that like me are my consumers, the community, and the agents that are under, like, running with me on my team. But these agents don't like me. Like, they don't like, I really did not think these agents liked me that much because of all, like, I was the trendsetter. I was the person that started showing time. I was the first person to have a team. I was the first person to have an assistant. I changed the game in my location and I got a lot of hate mail and a lot of pushback and a lot of blasted on these papers. So like crazy, like people, I remember when I brought showing time to Owensboro, somebody's like, if your superstar agent can't book their own showing, call us. And I'm like, are you serious? So anyways, that was the moment. Once I started noticing, like I started recruiting agents to Keller because it's such an agent-centric business and it wasn't about the broker, right, anymore. And I was offering such a competitive compensation. Then I was like, oh my gosh, people will follow me. Like people are going to follow me. Like I really humbly did not know that people would follow me. Like I was like, is this going to work? And I remember that first year going, okay, Kelly doesn't do anything half-ass. Like if I'm going to do something, I'm going to go all in and I'm going to study leadership. And so as I like read all the John Maxwell's, I attended all that. I think I lived in Austin for a little while, learning the franchise stuff. And then I went to therapy, lots and lots of therapy to get me right and to understand me and to develop emotional maturity. The more I learned, and then I saw like these people just like, I love you, Kelly. Thank you for what you do. And I was like, I just kept feeding more and more off of that. So I think and that was the role. Like, I was like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to be the best leader in town. Like, I'm going to be the best leader that changes lives. And that, you know, like my eulogy one day would be like, she made the biggest impact on my life and led me to Jesus or help my family or whatever that looks like. That's what I want, you know, and serving him.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and you know, I think it's so intriguing. So what took like Kellyanne from like, hey, I've got my real estate license to being the number one team? Like, what did that look like? I feel like more in particular, what's like one thing if somebody's listening, they're like, okay, how did she go from getting her license to being this number one agent to building? Did you do one or two things consistently, or a habit do you think that led to like Kellyanne being the number one team and consistently being the number one team?
One, I will probably outwork. I probably outworked everyone. Like, at that time, I didn't care to put in the hours because I did not like. I remember it wasn't never like I never went out on a mission when I got my license to be the best agent, like the
Yeah.
number one agent in town. Like that, that took me 3 years to do over 100 units. I just was being me. I was a Miller Lite girl, so I knew how to talk to everybody. I was in every bar, whether they had all their teeth or none of their teeth. And so, like, I mean, literally, so like, though that helped me be very likable. And then I hit the ground running and just worked. I mean, you cannot say someone's lucky. I literally know I outworked everyone. There's
Yeah.
no other question about that. Now, today, do I want to outwork everyone? I don't know if that's the answer. Like, I don't like that. But at that point, I just went to work because I was broke. So when I became the number one agent, and then 2 years later I started building the team because I couldn't operate like that. I think what the difference between me was once I hit the burnout stage that I think a lot of agents hit. I think if you look at MLSs and you look at agents and you see their production, more than likely, I would say 98% of the time that agent's production stays the same for years, or it starts to kind of come down, right? And so I remember thinking to myself, I have two options in this burn. We all reach burnout mode, right? I have the option to go down with the rest of the crowd and just consistently do this kind of production or less every year, living this kind of life. Or I can push through the status quo and learn how to have a team around me and give it up, right? And maybe not make this kind of income, but maybe, in the long run I would make more, but like temporarily, what does it look like to pour into other people to have a better life and to learn leverage? So I think what set me apart, because an individual agent can outwork a lot of people if they really want to. We've seen it. What set me apart is I learned how to put the right people on the bus, and I learned leverage. And I learned how do I maximize all the hours I have in the day to do the most dollar productive activities and give the rest away. Was the difference between me.
Yeah. And I think if you look, like you just said, like learning leverage at a super high level, even for agents and entrepreneurs, you can do a system or a tool that can only get you so far without adding people. And we know this, and you know this obviously, is that it's success through others, not around. And I think a lot of people avoid or think that they can't hire an assistant, they can't hire a marketing person. And if you shift your mindset, I think you can't afford to not hire those people because they leverage the activities. Number one, most of the time you're not great at, and that will take you to the next level. Who do you think right now, put you on the spot, like, who do you think, if you're missing anybody, are you missing in your world to take you to the next level?
So I actually know what I'm missing right now because we just had to get like super lean in our business because of the market. And I mean, I literally almost shaved $500,000 between all the companies. So right now I'm missing some leverage, but I'm willing to kind of tough it out for a little while to kind of build our reserves back. But I am missing that high level executive assistant, the person who is literally beside me all day long doing, like, I probably get off this call and have a few text messages, who's answering my text messages, who's filming content for me. That is what I'm missing in my life. And we have figured out in our organization all of our roles and what we do best. And I think for a long time, because I am so talented in the visionary role, and in the, like, either making sales happen or bringing agents over and impacting their lives, like, or teaching. Those are my three, like, genius seats. And so for a long time, I felt as a leader, I'm like, man, I want to give everybody the opportunity to do all these things that I do. And then we found out that, like, no, really, Kelly is just the only, like, in our organization at this point, Kelly is that person for us. So we need to do everything to support Kelly because that's going to make our business bigger. if we get her here, and then this person does this, Amber does ops, all things ops. She's all chief of staff. Like Matt's the GM. He's the one that handles, this part of the coaching, all this. If Kelly can do this, Kelly can go grow it because I'm a grower. And then I have a bunch of support people that are doing the things that I'm not good at, and let them kind of be on the pedestal in that role. They don't all have to be Kelly Ann. And so we've learned through business is like, I can't feel like, a lot of times we're like, I remember like as I was scaling being like, I feel very selfish that I need all this stuff to function. But it's like, no, that's actually helping everyone. Like if we get me in that position, everyone makes more money.
It's 100%. I mean, there's so many times, like we can go back in our business where we thought either having more people around you would help, and then you give the people the wrong roles or the wrong responsibilities, and it creates more headache and stress. And then you sometimes lean back too much, and then you're like, hold on, I just took so much back on my plate. But I mean, truly finding what your wheelhouse is and what you're strong at. And sometimes it's just not worth delegating those items, but delegating everything else. That way it keeps it momentum so you can be the visionary and continue to keep that plane soaring rather than backpedaling. So very interesting. If there's anything that you're looking for talent wise, because I know you have all age demographics and all your teams and all of your businesses, what is it that you look for in qualities or attributes when somebody approaches you for a position or something that you're needing to fill?
So I know who I am, right? And so I think a lot of entrepreneurs don't know who they are, right? Flawed or not. I know who I am. I know I am fast paced. I know I'm intense. So I recommend entrepreneurs know who you are, because we can't really change some of the DNA we have. Like we can work through it and get better at approaching people, but I know what kind of personality needs to be on my team and what personality doesn't. So if my high D personality is going to roll you over and you can't stand up for yourself, you're going to end up hating me. I've just figured that out. Like I have such a strong personality of let's go. And if you can't keep up with me and your feelings get hurt really easily and you can't speak up for yourself, then it's not going to work for either of us. So that's what I look for someone who is fast paced with me, who's like a quick starter. I have to have a quick starter. I look for someone who does have a strong personality to stand up to me, because I know I don't sugarcoat. I can be very blunt. I think y'all are laughing because I'm sure, like, I just know I can be blunt and I'm to business, and I don't have time for your feelings when we're on track for growth. We can talk about your feelings in another conversation, but today we just got to go, right? I do care about your feelings, but this is business,
Right.
But that's just who I am. And as I've learned, I'm like, I've tried to be someone I'm not. And I just, that doesn't function because I end up attracting strong people. And so more than likely, I'm not the only one that's going to hurt your feelings.
Yeah.
So yes, so that's what I look for. And I look for someone who takes initiative. So because I do run so many companies and I have so many different hats and I have to put on a different hat. It's like, what is it? A chameleon, where you change.
Yeah.
I can't, I heard this from Leila Harmozy the other day. They're like, hey, when you're hiring someone, test them. See if they because you can't teach hustle. You can't teach grit, right? So give them a project, see how fast they come back to you at it. See if they can figure it out with you having to answer 20 questions. See if they can research your Instagram. They can research things about you and see if they're proactive. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so good. So I'm like, if I get someone who takes days to come back to me, I can't teach that. I don't have time to teach that.
Yeah. And, we've recognized, and I'm sure you have too, like your minimum, an hour minimum is most people's maximum. And obviously, and two, like we've had to really, me personally, and being transparent, has to look at like, I'm very passionate, but that also comes across as intense to some people. And so I've always had to work on managing my intensity because I've been aware that people cannot understand my passion if I'm being too intense because that's how they're receiving it. Is that something, do you think, that you've struggled with? Because I know it also is a lot of entrepreneurs is that they are just so intense that they don't know how to manage that intensity. It's just like it's like go, 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 go. But 95% of your team aren't 100% like that. And I think that's okay as well, because there has to be a different personality for all of those roles. Like my bookkeeper, who's been with me over 11 years, is complete opposite of me. I would never want her to be as intense as I am, but she kills it in her role. So talk to me a little about that.
Yeah, so I think it is very aware to know your people too. So I say that. So I'm upfront in the conversation. This is who I am. This is this. I love you. I appreciate you. Right. I do end up loving my people at the end of the day. Like people are like, quit loving your people. I'm like, no, I love my people. Like I care about them.
Yeah.
But I want to know them, and then I make sure they know themselves. Right. So like high C's, I'm like, hey, like you tend to want to be correct. So I'm going, at times, you're going to get very frustrated and you're going to want to defend yourself because you weren't correct in this project, right? So I help them identify like also their flaws and their fears so that when those things happen, we don't butt heads and they don't end up that. So the passion part of me, what I have learned about myself is if I get very emotional in a situation, I will type the email, sleep on it, and then send it the next day. And I usually end up editing it. So like I have learned that when I'm in that passion, intense moment or frustration moment, I do my best to kind of digest it and send it the next day. The other things I have learned about me is I don't send emails through the weekend to my operations team. I postpone them till 8:00 in the morning. And then usually throughout the weekend, I'm editing the message so it's not so direct. So I guess that would be one thing that I've learned about myself. And then I've also learned that as an entrepreneur, as a visionary, we have millions of ideas. And on the operations side, they can't handle all those ideas. That looks like more work to them, right? So I will type it out. I won't even tell them. I'll think about it. I'll sit on it. And then I know going into that conversation that they're going to poke holes at me. So at that point, I'm going to be, I used to get really pissed off and I used to get like, golly, they just poo-poo on every one of my ideas. I'm not going to get my idea executed. And then I learned that it's like, no, I need to have tougher skin. And they think about how it affects them, right? First. Yeah. So hopefully that helps your question. Like I answered the question.
No, 100%. And I think if anybody's listening and you said those passion moments, if you're an entrepreneur or if you've owned a business or thinking, those passion moments happen about 10 times a day. So that's a skill you're practicing to not send that email 10 times a day. So, and especially you're right on the weekend, it seems like that's when those passion moments hit the most that you really want to send that email. But it's like you said, it's always best to like, in the moment, we say and do things that we don't mean generally. And people receive it different ways. And I think as an entrepreneur, like the way you manage your emotions is going to be how you lead your business, build it, or it doesn't grow. And so that's important, I think, to always be self-aware. Number one, like you said, is who am I? And then how can I manage that so that I show up as my team members need me to be, who I need to be.
No, yeah. I agree.
Yeah. My next question, obviously, is the whole National Association of Realtors, all the new changes. Give us a little about that. I know you've been teaching about that to the consumer. What do you want the consumer, two basic questions. What do you want the consumer to know about this most recent change that's just went into effect on the 17th, I think?
Yeah. So I honestly think one, I can go back and forth of like my political standpoint on it, but what they need to realize is purchasing a home needs to be just as important on listing your home with an agent. You need to interview your buyer's agent. I think this is going to slow down the fast phone calls on go view listings. and it's going to make our industry a lot more professional and what we've needed for a long time. Because the only people that were getting agency reps were the ones who were the most skilled agents, right? And now it's going to force those conversations. And I personally think, as a skilled agent and a broker, I'm excited about the change because I'm going to find out really fast who really wants to work with me and who's committed. And I'm going to make sure I don't waste a lot of unproductive time trying to get every penny or every nickel, right?
Yeah.
In every consumer, because I think that as agents and as the consumers, we waste a lot of time on people that aren't committed to doing that. So I think it's going to kind of slow down this rat race, should I say. And I think the consumer needs to know, like, hey, you have the option to interview. You do have the option to look at a home one time. But you need to make sure that you're picking an agent that is educated. And the one thing that I was telling my agents is that we need to start tracking is, what is the likelihood that you get that consumer to the table, right? So something that is important, I think, right now is, what's the likelihood that you get your home, like you get the home of your dreams and you get that under contract? Like, if you're competing with other buyers to reach this home, is your agent a good negotiator? Is your agent really successful in the closing table? Or do they have a reputation of contracts falling apart, which makes agents not really want to do business with them? Or do they not know how to represent you in your highest interest and negotiate the best offer for you, right? And so buyers agents have been like, oh, it's free to use me. No, it's not, because at the end of the day, it's never been free, right? You could argue who's paying the commission. The person that writes the check, I would think, is paying the commission at the end of the day, who has been the buyer the whole time. So
Yeah. What I know, I definitely know to me, I think it's going to change our industry. What would you say to the agent right now that's giving so much pushback? Because we've all seen it out there, all these agents creating scenarios. And at the end of the day, my perspective is that it just comes down to value. And I've seen, in any industry, any entrepreneur, if you're not willing to pivot in your business, learn something new and show your value, that's going to be presenting itself to you in any industry. And so to me, you just have to learn to be better and show your value. So what do you think, even, working with so many agents, this is going to do for those agents who just don't want to comply?
So this is just my opinion. Again, this is just my opinion. We all have the right of our own opinion. The agents that don't want to comply are the agents that are not going to be in the business. They're the agents that's not skilled, that doesn't know their value, who's been working at a very low skilled level in our industry, and probably are the ones that are not going to be here. And it's here, and we can either be upset and say all these things that is wrong, or why NAR should have fought for us more, or whatever that is. We weren't in that courtroom. We didn't hear any of the stuff that went down. We can only trust that they did the best of their ability. And that's what I think truly we all do as humans, is we do the best we can with what we have, right? And so, or the knowledge or the skill, whether we agree or not. And so I personally think we've got to move past that. It's here. This is where it's at. The past is gone. Let's focus on moving forward, the positive, and let's look at the optimistic side of this, of the professionalism. And if you're going to get stuck and not comply, you probably won't be in the business, because consumers are more educated than you think, and they're watching the way you behave.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. So we kind of switch gears real quick. So I know you're in property management and in the short-term rental Airbnb space. What's one thing that you've learned that you did not anticipate when you said, hey, I'm going to take this on under my belt too?
Woo! So that's, I mean, y'all do this too. It's probably what, I swear, this is like the tougher business out of all the real estate ones, is property management. So one, it's in the beginning, I think I shortchanged myself on managing properties because I thought I wanted to start this awesome business. And what I've learned is it's really, really a difficult space to be in, to make everyone happy, a really hard space to keep good staff. It's a really hard, because, and this is what I tell the owners of the property as I've kind of gained more confidence and understanding is one, you don't talk to my staff member like that. My staff member is doing everything to protect your property at the capacity that they can protect it. And we can't be blamed for what a tenant's decision, right? But that property manager is getting chewed out on the daily, either by the tenant, by you, the owner. But if you want me to continue to manage your property, you're going to treat my staff with the utmost respect, or you can find another property management company, because this is literally not enough money for the problems that we deal with. I mean, I really think it's one of the most underpaid professions out there. That is just my opinion, because it's hard to keep good staff at the less amount of money that people actually want to pay you to manage their wealth. It's crazy to me.
Yeah, I was going to say they have the biggest asset of their life, and they don't want to pay you, or they don't want to let someone professionally manage it. They're like, I'll do this on the side. And you get their piece of property and you've realized they've really not been there for 10 years. I'm like, this is the biggest asset you own.
Like, I'm like, yes, I'll pay you more. Like, you want to do this job? Like, and so I'm actually thinking about, I signed some low property management fees when I was starting, and all their contract, I got like a handful of them that are up at the end of the year. And I'm having the conversation this year, like, hey man, this has gotten harder. This has gotten harder with the tenant laws, with the court systems. This is going to be, I'm upping your fee. I understand if you want to go somewhere else, but it comes to the point where, like, you need to decide, do you want a professional person to manage your property, and do you want to go with what I'm telling you to do, or are you going to fight me? If you're going to fight me on that, I'm probably not the best person for you, because you're just going to end up blaming me in the end.
Yeah. For sure.
You all, how many do you all manage, like, over a grant? Like, how many do you all manage now?
We have a lot, and we continue to, we've had to learn that over the years of who our avatar is as well. And, in order to be anything professional, be it that a real estate agent, property management company, then you have to know your value. And there's a lot of people that don't want to go to a professional hairstylist or a professional anything. They want to go to, Great Cuts, or I'm sorry, Super Cuts. I don't know what it even is, but that's what you're going to get. So when you hire a professional, I mean, it comes with the price, but that's why it's called professional. And there's a lot of people, I think, in every industry or space that call themselves professionals. But if you truly know your value, then it's easy to know who you want to work with. And you know what? Being okay with someone not working with you is a big thing. But as an entrepreneur, this, you want to be able to help everybody. And so you're like, you know what, I'll do this to help you, because that is, but the number one thing we learned was to just, it's okay to say no. Like, there are going to be people you can't say yes to, because you're just having to say no to a lot of things in your own life. We'll wrap it up really quick. I know there's so many questions. We could have like a 9-part series. Of all the businesses that you do, I know you also have a women's community. Which one gives you the most energy of all the businesses you own or that you're part of? Like, right now, it gives you the most energy, that if you had to give up every one of them tomorrow, that you would say, I'd be okay with this one, just doing this one for the rest of my life?
Oh man, that's tough.
That's like an Oprah question.
Yeah. At the end of the day, I still love working for the consumer, like the consumer, and listing their property when they're happy with me. Most of the time they are. It's the things that are kind of unrealistic of the consumer. But I mean, like, winning that listing and getting that listing sold, like, to this day, it just still makes me so happy. And then but on top of that, because I will never not sell property. Like, people ask me, are you going to sell? I'm like, it keeps me relevant, and I love it. Like, I do love it. You having a bad day in your life or a bad year, real estate's one of those that can just make you feel 150% better about yourself, because you're wanted. And then I would think the second thing is, if I wasn't selling, would be helping the agent, no matter what. go from the average agent to the mega. I love that. I love watching someone go from 30 units to 70 or 50 to 100. Like, I've helped teams across the nation. I have helped agents. I love that high-minded conversation. And I just love it. I love helping people like form their teams. That would probably, I would say that is probably the biggest wheelhouse. The newer agent, the basic stuff does not fuel me. It's the high level conversation of the business owner.
That's awesome. So to wrap us up, so we're just going to kind of rapid fire some questions, short answer. What is your favorite pastime and why?
What do you mean by that? What's pastime?
What do you like to do in your downtime?
Oh, I love to surf. I love it. If I'll be on a boat surfing. So,
if you could read or recommend any book to anybody, what would that book be?
That book would be The 5 Levels of Leadership by John Maxwell.
Who's one person that you would like to take to dinner?
Well, who would I like to take to dinner? I would take Myra Oliver. I feel like that she's just been my constant in my life through this journey, and she's done a lot of the things I've done. So like, yeah, I would always she's just done a lot of things out of the goodness of her heart for me.
What do you believe your superpower is?
Influence.
And if money was not an object, what's one thing that you would do tomorrow?
If money was not an option, ooh, that's a good one. What would I go and do? I love to travel. I would probably get on a plane and backpack through Europe.
Awesome.
Love it. I have two, and then we'll wrap it up. We know we keep saying this. For me and an entrepreneur, most entrepreneurs are really scared about being vulnerable and actually showing their weaknesses and doing all that. So what's one of the biggest lessons you've learned from being vulnerable?
Actually, that's where I connect to people more.
That's great.
So when I look put together, I'm not as approachable. Being from Kentucky always gives me a leg up, especially on a national level, because I think that Kentuckians are or maybe just Midwest. Yeah, like I think we're just very humble individuals that are, what did somebody say to me? They're like, everybody's so nice in Kentucky. And they were like, it's probably because there's a church on every corner still. And I'm like, I don't know. I was like, it's just kind of homegrown and homebred, it's just what we do. So
Southern hospitality.
Yes.
So my last question is, if you look back at your life from Kelly from the beginning until now, and they were going to do a movie, what would the title of your movie be that could sum up your life? What would the title of Kellyanne's movie be?
Oh my God. Miller Girl to Miller Girl to something like Miller.
No,
it's Girl to Millionaire. I don't know.
Yeah, there you go. Miller Girl to Millionaire. I would watch it. I think literally we just gave you and helped you with the idea of your title of your book. Okay.
I'm so proud.
I can see the whole ad, the front page cover, and everything.
So how can people find the Miller Girl who made it to as a millionaire? How can they connect with you? If they want to connect with Kellyanne, where can they find you or be part of your women's community?
Yeah. So our women's community is called Elevate. My friend Raquel and I, we have a big announcement coming out some other women we're joining forces with to create the space in the real estate space for the woman entrepreneur who feels like she's wearing all the hats as everything, right? But my name, you can just search my name. It's very easy. I got rid of all the funky, it's just Kelly Ann Harris. I got told that a long time ago. It's like, quit being some other name. It's just use your name, Kelly Ann Harris. Because we're FYI, as you're building your brand is your name, right? And so you should be using your name. So that's why it's like the same picture. So you can just look me up. And Ann is spelled with an E.
And she has 2 spots left to Aruba if anybody wants to join her for
I got one of them filled, so we got one more spot.
Spot left.
Y'all should come. You'd be fine. I can't imagine it. Oh no, I know.
Yeah, we'll just be
Just
the
wear a
poor
wig.
Well, thank you so much, Kellyanne. This was value packed. This is for the entrepreneur from every single level. And I'm sure they've gotten a lot of takeaways from this. So I know you're super busy. Thanks for taking the time of your day to talk with us, to talk to our people. We appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Keeping It Entrepreneurial. And be sure to subscribe wherever you heard this podcast so you never miss a future episode. Don't forget to check out the show notes for those actionable items to stay engaged for future episodes and how to stay connected with Josh and Heath. And if you found value in today's episode, leave us a review and please share with others.